Alright guys, today I'd like to show you one of the rigs that I've used for probably, let me think, maybe more than 25 years. I don't use it exclusively all the time, but it makes a massive difference. You know, you get a lot of anglers say that they use very basic rigs, just a knotless knot, whatever pattern of hook they've got. They might put a bit of a shrink tube liner on it, or just a bit of silicone. And one of the things with that is, of course it'll catch fish. It's very basic, but with the addition of this one small thing, it can definitely enhance your catch rate. And I call it the anchor rig. And you think about a ship's anchor, it's got that crossbar like a T-bar on it, and that's there for a reason. When the ship's pulling an anchor across sand, for example, the T-bar makes the anchor flip onto one of the points and grip the bottom, or else it just wouldn't work. So I thought about that and included it in my rig. You can see it's got a piece of stiff nylon bristle that goes through the shrink tube liner. I've glued it in place, and it's about 6mm wide. So I make a hole with the needle through the shrink tube, which I'll show you in a minute. Put the little bristle of stiff material, something like a 30-pound corded boom seems pretty good. Nice and stiff, it's really effective. Use your wafters. It works with pop-ups as well, by the way. It'll work with any kind of presentation, really. I've even seen some of my mates that have shown it using it with chod rigs, would you believe? So there we go. I'll show you what I'm talking about. It just sits and grips instantly on the hand. This is a long shank, which are a very good hook for gripping the palm test anyhow, because even though it's in a volume of water and there's turbulence, this tends to catch hold far more efficiently than a standard rig. So you can see it just bang, there's no movement, not even 1mm, it's looking for a grip. So before it's even hit the lead, the fish, that hook is primed, sat on the point, ready to go. I've got the same rig here, incidentally, still an effective rig without the anchor on. So you can see the movement there on my hand, it's like ridiculous. See, it's gripped now, but that was 1 out of 2. But it's moving a good 15mm there before it's even looking for a grip. And that could be the difference between a fish and not having a fish. You know, it's still efficient, but there's times when it's bobbling around. Get the anchor. Sharp hooks these. You know, it's flailing around, bang. See, it's so quick. I'll show you how to make it. And it's worth trying in your fishing. It'll definitely enhance it, as I say. All right guys, here's how to construct the anchor rig. You can use it with supple braid, coated braid. You can use it with boom rigs. You can use it with running rigs. It works on those. It's a slightly more awkward thing, but it still works. In this case, I've just got some coated hook link, 25 £. Use my teeth or one of the tools for stripping it, but I always use my teeth. I'm a bit old-fashioned and it's quicker. So I'm going to strip off about 6 or 7 inches. Get rid of that. Make a little loop on the end, double overhand. Guesstimate the sort of size of the baits I'm going to use. In this instance, I'm using a 15mm wafter with a piece of corn on top, so I know from experience exactly how big the loop should be to suit those two particular items. So I don't want the knot halfway down the hair. All right, get that, snip it off. Baiting needle, I'm going to put a wafter with a piece of corn on the top, an old Enterprise corn. My old favourite. Been using the spotted fin smoky jack as my bait, or chosen bait recently, and had some good success on it as well. So these are the smoky jack wafters. I don't pre-tie my rigs, I always put the bait on first, then I get the length of the hair, the exact distance that I want. There's no guesswork, it's just perfect. Boilie stop. Bit old-fashioned, I like to have the boilie stop the same colour as the bait that I'm tipping. Little tiny percentages, so that's that. Right, as you've seen, I like using the long shanks. Not very popular nowadays, long shanks, for some reason. But I've used them for at least 20 years and find them very successful, so I don't really want to change. Right, this is quite important. I'm going to do a knotless knot, but I want about some separation on there, so I guess it's about 6 or 7 mil gap between the boilie and the bend of the hook. So I'll go around at least 6 times. Right, so I've left myself about an inch of the supple stuff. Here's an interesting thing, fellas and ladies. There's probably a lot of girls doing fishing now, as we know. Put it through once, that's okay, but it's not strong enough. So when I do a knotless knot, I put it through 2 times, and it makes a massive difference. There's a lot more strength in that and nothing's slipping. So that's about perfect there. So I don't use a ring or a piece of silicone that can easily move on this rig. I use a piece of 1.6 clear shrink tube. I cut a piece off about 4 mil long. This is going to move in blowback. Put that on first. I find that wetting the eye of the hook gets it over easier. So a bit of saliva on there, then it passes over easy. So that's going to be shrunk down in a minute. Next piece is about 10 mils. So this is going to be my liner. Slip that down. Just put it over the eye of the hook, so it just covers the knot. That's quite adequate. You can see there, I never wet it and it's a bit tricky. Wet it, bang, on instantly. Right, and now I use a baiting needle. That would work as it is, but for an extra dimension to make it turn quicker, I want it liner lined. So I make a hole in the shrink tube with the needle, get the material, put it through that hole, and that creates a right angle which tends to make the hook flip even more pronounced. So that would be okay by itself, but the next bit of the equation is you get the stiff material. Oh, in this case I got a bit of this rigidity, the Fox stuff. You know, I'm not too fussy about what you use for this. It's just a piece of thick line that's stiff. Cut a piece off that's about, you can cut it too big to start with because you're going to trim it down. So I get that and I make a hole with a sewing needle straight through the shrink tube like that, so it's like an anchor in itself. Get this piece, just guide it into place. So that's it before I've shrunk it down. It still turns like a mad thing like that. It's so effective, and it rears up like a scorpion tail and hooks them in the top lip as well, as I was saying. So next thing what we do, get the old kettle going. I've only put a little bit of water in for this. I don't steam it, by the way, this is important. I have an open top kettle like this. If you're holding it in front of the steam, it takes for ages to shrink it down, and if you're on a nylon rig, superheated steam is far more dangerous to use on nylon in particular because it's hotter than boiling water. So the steam's ridiculously hot and it can easily damage a fluorocarbon hook length or a nylon hook length, so remember that. This is a good tip. So have an open top kettle, get it up to the boil, just half an inch of water, that's all you need. Seconds to do. The good thing is as well, it sterilises your baits where your human hands have touched it, so there's a human smell on your hands. So when I steep it in the boiling water, including the hook baits, it sterilises everything. And I often quite, regular, put it in boiling water before I cast out. You might think, oh, he's taking it too far, but it's never too far, is it really? For a few minutes extra when you sat for hours behind the rods, you might as well just go the whole 9 yards. There we are, it's boiling already. So rather than mess around in front of the spout steaming it, get the whole lot, hold it in there for about 5 or 6 seconds, bang, done. Look how straight the hook length is now, beautiful. But in this instance I have to tell you another thing, just so that the anchor doesn't slip out. I move it to one side and I get the old super glue. For once I've got a new super glue, so it's not already glued to the cap, which you've probably done yourselves many times. Put one dab on it there, slide it back into position so it's in the middle, let that set, Yeah, and then turn this off. Yeah, that's there. Now it's a little bit long at the moment, so I'm going to just trim it with some sharp scissors. So you leave about 3mm out of each side, I guess. Make sure it's right. You don't have to kick this over, you just have it straight, the shrink tube. And what I do is I slide the blowback so it's opposite the barb and the point, the micro barb. And then there we are, that's ready to go. And the reason you might be wondering why I don't use a ring or silicone and I use shrink tube that's really quite difficult to move, you can see it sort of takes quite a lot of pressure to move that. There's a good reason for that. If you get bream or nuisances that mess with it on a ring or with the silicone, it can easily be disturbed and fall back into position. Not the silicone, but the ring, you don't know if you've been done. When I get this back, only a carp can usually blow back. It's got a strong enough amount of force in the way it ejects stuff to when it's been nicked, to shift the shrink tube. So if I get a rig back and I've had a few bleeps or a rod shaker and that shrink tube's blown back, I know I've been done. So I know to introduce more bait, and it's a little telltale. Sometimes there's no way of telling that they've eaten all your free offerings if they've managed to deal with your rig, but that tells you. So it's a little handy tip for you. And as I say, makes a difference, ready to go, dead easy.